Respond to the yes if you're on it. So perfect. Open that agriculture and industry, where we have agriculture and industry. We have basically agriculture and industry. A minute as we turn. Just a minute as we. So agriculture and industry. So the first thing that I want us to touch on is the role of agriculture in economic development. So we talk about role briefly, role of agriculture in what we call in economic development. So what we call the role of agriculture in what we call economic development altogether. So one of the first role of agriculture in economic development, we say, contribute to national income. It does not contribute, we call it contribute to what? To the national. It contributes to the national income. It does contribute to what it calls to the national income. It contributes to the national income. Number two, promote exploitation of natural resources. We call it exploitation of what we call natural resources. Through agriculture, we exploit natural resources like the land altogether. But again, agriculture is the source of employment for those who are in the rural area. Source of what we call employment. We have what we call source of what we call employment. Agriculture is a source of employment altogether. Then the government are also able to earn revenue through tax. Government, call it earning, what they call revenue, and they call it through taxes. So the government is basically earning revenue through taxes. That the government is able to earn revenue through taxes. That is in agriculture. Then earn foreign exchange through export. Foreign exchange through what we call through export. So that is the role of agriculture. Together, team, the rest you can get in the notes. Are we together on the role of agriculture? So I want us to talk about briefly problems facing agricultural sectors. Problems, call it affecting what we call the agricultural sector. So the problems that basically face what's called agricultural sector. One of it is price fluctuation. We have what's called the price fluctuation. We have what's called price fluctuation. So we have what's called declining terms of trade. We have what's called declining terms of what we call trade. Declining terms of trade. We have what's called poor infrastructure. Poor infrastructure. Poor infrastructure. Poor infrastructure. Agricultural sector is also faced inadequate. We call it inadequate capital. We have what's called inadequate capital as also a factor. And lastly, we have calamities such as drought. Calamities such as drought. So these are some of the problems that face agricultural sector. Tubonyeze yes kama tuko pamoja. Tubonyeze yes kama tuko pamoja. We respond to the yes before together. So how do we overcome this problem? We talk about how to overcome, measures to overcome, what I call problems facing, we call it facing agricultural sectors. So measures to basically overcome the problems that face what you call agricultural sectors. Measures to overcome problems that face agricultural sectors. We have what you call buffer stock. Use of what we call buffer stock. Use of what we call buffer stocks altogether. Use of what we call buffer stock, where you can basically buffer stocks. Then you have compensatory finance. So these are farmers who go through maybe famine or pest, locust invasion. So we have use of what we call compensatory fund. Use of what we call compensatory fund. We have what we call use of compensatory fund. So developing infrastructure, we have what we call developing infrastructure. One of the reasons infrastructure, goods moving from the farms to the market, you have roads are bad. Then training farmers on modern agricultural techniques. Training farmers. We have farmers on modern, we call it agricultural techniques. Training farmers on modern agricultural techniques. And we can also talk about financial assistance to farmers. Giving financial, we call it assistance. Assistance to who? To farmers. Giving financial assistance to the farmers as one of the ways. Together, the rest you can get in the notes. Together. So then we want to talk about changes in tax policy. This one you don't have. Changes in tax policies. Changes in tax policies. We'll talk about changes in tax policies that the government, we say that the government could, changes in the tax policy that the government could adopt, that the government could implement, that could be changes in tax policies that the government could implement. So changes in the tax policies that government could implement to spur growth in agriculture, could implement to spur, the word is to spur growth, we say in agricultural sectors. So what are changes in tax policies that the government can fiscally adopt to spur growth in agricultural sectors? So what are changes in tax policies the government could adopt? One is lowering tax on agricultural input altogether, like machines. One is lowering tax on what's called on agricultural input. You make them cheaper, like machines that are used in agriculture, you make it cheaper. Then subsidies to farmers to encourage, giving subsidies to farmers, giving what we call subsidies to farmers to do what? To encourage what we call production. Giving subsidies to farmers to encourage what we call production. Giving subsidies to farmers to encourage production. So imposing tax on import, making it expensive to import. We have imposing what we call tax on what we call on the import. You make it expensive for those who are import. You make it expensive for those who are importing. Then we can talk about reducing taxes on agricultural export. You can talk about reducing what's called the taxes on what's called on agricultural export. So reducing the taxes on what's called the agricultural export. And lastly, we just give 5. We'll talk about reducing fuel price to lower transportation costs. Reducing fuel price, reducing what's called the fuel price to lower, the word is to lower transportation, to lower what's called transportation cost. So you reduce reduce the fuel price, basically to lower what's called the transportation cost, So these are tax policies that can be adopted by the government. So the board is not clear. Somebody says the board is not clear. Is it true? Let's see. Is it true, Gillian, that the board is not clear? Gillian, is it true that the board is not clear? Let's change that next. Confirm if the net is okay now. Very fast, I want us to move to industries. We start with industry. Confirm if the net is okay. Confirm if the net is okay. So we proceed to the industry. We'll move to industry, just have a small discussion. Industry. So industry. Kitawe responded yes. The net should be okay. It should be okay because on my end, it should be okay. It means maybe where you people are, your nets are not okay. The net should be okay. Step in and out, Kitawe. Then you come in. Step in and come back. The net should be perfectly okay. Is that okay? Is it okay now? Give me a yes. Is it okay? So with that, should be okay. Is it okay? It should be okay. So then we start with the industry. So the role of industries in economic development or in developing countries. Role of industries. We talk about role of what we call industries. Industries in what we call in economic development. What does industry do in the quest of economic development? That we say increase in national income, an increase in what we call structural institutional. So one of the things that industry does is that create employment. We call it create what we call employment. One of the things that it does create what we call employment together. It does create what we call employment. So it assists in diversification. Instead of farming only, diversification in what's called in the economy. There's what we call diversification, and we have what's called diversification in economy. It promotes self-reliance in food supply. We call it reliance in what we call in food supply. One of the things that it does is self-reliance in food supply. What we call self-reliance in food supply. But again, government is able to earn revenue through taxes. Government, we call it earns revenue, and we call it through taxes, through the industry, through taxes. Government earning revenue through taxes as one of the things that industry does. Then you can talk about exploitation. It also enhance exploitation of the natural resources. It enhances what we call exploitation of the natural resources. It does enhance exploitation of what we call the natural resources. It does enhance exploitation of what we call natural resources. Together, that's the role of industry. The rest we can get from the notes. Is that okay? If that is okay, we respond with a yes. So I want us to talk about problems facing industries in developing countries. Problems facing what we call industries, and we call it in developing countries. So what are the problems facing industries in developing countries? So what are these problems that face industries in developing countries? What are these problems? One of it is poor infrastructure. We have what's called poor, we call it poor infrastructure. We have what's called poor infrastructure. Together, the roads are not very poor. They say in a developing country, inadequate entrepreneurial skills. We have inadequate entrepreneurial skills. These developing countries do not have entrepreneurial skills. So inadequate entrepreneurial skills. Then we talk about inadequate sources of energy, what we call inadequate. We call it sources of energy. We have what we call inadequate sources of energy as one of the challenges that is facing. We also talk about what we call insecurity altogether. We talk about very important, faced with inadequate capital. What we call inadequate capital. That's why there's not much industries in developing countries. Why? Because there's what we call inadequate capital. There's not so much industries because of inadequate capital. But again, investors are also afraid to put up industry because of what? Insecurity as one of the issues. Insecurity. So that is on problems that face industrial sectors, on problems that basically face industrial sectors together, on problems that face industrial sector. Together, Prisca, we give it a yes on problems that we say face industrial sector. Then we talk about measures to overcome problems. Measures to overcome what we call the problems facing what we call the industrial sectors. So the opposite, if you understand the problem, then the opposite of the problem becomes the solution. The opposite of the problem becomes what we call the solution. The opposite of the problem becomes the solution. If you have issues of infrastructure, so we have development of what we call of infrastructure. This is one of the questions that I advise we should not even write. But do we get that? If one problem is in infrastructure, make the roads better. Then again, because of lack of capital, we can talk about formation of economic internet. When they come, they become stronger. Formation, we call it formation of what we call of economic integration. Formation of what we call economic integration. They come as a bit. Again, also sometimes technology. Adoption of modern, we talk about adoption of what we call of modern technology. Adoption of what we call the modern technology. If you can adopt modern technology, credit facility because of lack of money, credit facilities to the entrepreneurs, credit facilities to the entrepreneur, so that they have capital to build these industries. But we can also talk about import restriction. Why is our industry not performing? Because they're good from outside. So import restrict, what we call the import restriction. Impose what you call import restriction, and many others that you're going to get in the notes. Is that understood? We respond with a yes if that is understood. If that is understood, we respond with a yes. Again, you can also talk about research to come up with a better quality product, alternative source of energy, cheaper energy. So I want to talk about location of industry. You don't have it there, but it's a common question. Location of an industry. Location of what we call of an industry. Should you locate an industry anywhere? Should you locate an industry basically anywhere? Should you locate an industry just anywhere? Should you locate an industry just anywhere? No. Are we together? So the factors that you need to look at, factors. If you're to locate an industry, then you need to locate an industry based on a number of factors. One is availability of raw material. Availability of what we call raw materials. We call it availability of raw materials. Together, you locate an industry where you can easily, are we together, have raw material. Why? To save cost, are we together? To get raw materials while they're still fresh, the raw materials that you need while they're still fresh, to ensure continuous supply, to ensure continuous supply, then to save warehousing or storage. So you need it where it's close to. The next factor is availability of market. Availability, once you have processed the product, availability of the market. There should be a market altogether to save on transport cost. If the market is near, it saves on transport cost altogether, where final product gain weight after processing, to save on storage cost. If you have market, you're not going to store it for long. Again, availability of power. If you have availability, we have it availability of what we call power. That's key thing as you locate an industry. Then we have what's called good infrastructure. Good infrastructure. Infrastructure as you locate, you need where the infrastructure is good. But at the same time, we have what's called availability of water, because for those industry, availability of what we call of the water. Availability of water, but at the same time, availability of a premise or building. Premise, we can have this premise or a building. So if December 2025, you have a question on location. What are some of the factors altogether? These are some of the factors that you basically you look at altogether in order to locate an industry. But again, also very important, look at the government policy. Don't put an industry where it's expensive, taxes are very high. Is that understood? We respond with this. So then I want to talk about two concepts that you'll find questions in a paper. One is localization of industry. One, we call it localization. Call it localization of what we call industries. Localization of industries. So the first term, you can be asked, what are the advantages? Localization of industry. So the keyword, whenever we talk about localization of industry, we are simply saying that concentration of industry in one area. So this is basically what we call concentration concentration of what they call of industries in one area. So concentration of industry in one particular area. That is what we call localization of industry. Together, team. Are we together? So that is what we call localization. Some of the reasons why an industry could be localized in one area is this. Are we together? This will lead to an industry. So what is the advantage? What is the advantage? So I'll have one and I have advantage, and on the other hand, I have disadvantages. Tuko sawa chini? Nipatie yes tafadhali as we do this. So with the localized, we have already established market, already established market. If industry are located in one place, already established market as one of the things that we have. But we understand that government provide necessary security. Government provide what we call necessary security. Government providing what we call the necessary security. Government providing necessary security. Then promote establishment of other support services. Establishment of other, call it support services. Establishment of other support services, like the bank, where there's a lot of industry, you find the banks coming up. Are we together? Good infrastructure is already good infrastructure that will find good infrastructure. Good infrastructure, you'll find in those areas as a result of industry being located. But you say government provide necessary, we talked about that. Then you say that availability of pool of skilled labor. Availability of what they call pool of skilled labor. Availability of what they call pool of skilled labor. Those advantages tuko sawa? Nipatie yes on those advantages. Give me a yes on those advantages. Tafadhali. So what are the dangers of locating an industry concentrating in one place? One is social evil like crime. Those areas, social evil, you say such as crime and what's called and prostitution. Those areas you find a lot of crime and prostitution if you concentrate them. But you also understand that other farms may have, they say rural urban migration. They'll come to those areas. Rural urban migration. Rural urban migration. People move to rural areas because this will find urban areas. Rural urban migration. They say congestion in urban areas. It brings congestions in urban areas. We have congestion in urban area. People will be congested, but we understand that imbalanced regional development. Imbalanced regional, call it regional development. So we have imbalanced regional development. We'll have what's called imbalanced regional development. So decline the rate of economic growth. What I call decline in what's called in the rate of what we call of economic growth. Decline in the rate of economic growth. It can also lead to a decline in the rate of economic growth. Which can regions where we don't have industries, they will lag behind. Together, we'll respond to yes. So I want to talk about very fast because we're coming for the vision. So we just finish. So then there's a concept that we have known as delocalization of industry. The next concept, we call it delocalization. So we call it delocalization. of what they call of the industries. So the localization of the industry. We'll talk about that concept. So when we talk about the localization of industry, we say that spreading industry in all parts of the country. Spreading industries in all parts of the country. So this is spreading. The one is spreading what I call industries. Industries in what called in all parts of a country. So you basically spread industries in all parts of the country, spreading industries in all parts of the country. So when that happens, then you have the advantages. We have the advantages, like some questions will get there, and then you have the disadvantages. Disadvantages. So we are saying this, Priska. We don't want you people to go to exam and there's a question that you see was not taught. So there's the positive of it and there's the negative of it. So if you spread the industries in all parts of the country, so one of the things that it does, we respond to yes. One thing that it does, one of it is creation. We just call it creation employment. There's employment all over. There's what we call employment all over. So one of the things that it does is that there will be employment all over. Are we together? Then we know that creation of market for locally produced goods. Creation of what we call market for locally, we call it produced goods. For locally produced goods. So creation of what we call a market for the goods that have been locally, are we together? So again, in exploitation, it does enhances what we call exploitation. Exploitation of what we call of the natural resources. Enhances what we call exploitation of the natural resources together. They're saying emergence of urban centers in rural areas. So you have urban centers in rural areas. We find our rural areas becoming like the cities of China. But again, very important, economic development in a developed region. Economic development in what's called in underdeveloped regions together. So those regions will grow. 5 is enough. So what are the dangers of spreading industries all over in Kenya? All over. So again, social evil. You find rural area where people have good manners. Social evil. So we have what's called social evil, such as crime and what's called prostitution. Social evil such as crime and prostitution. You'll get it even in the rural area. But you also have some displacement of people to create industry. Displacement of what we call of people to create industry, to create what's called industry. So we have displacement of people, basically to do what? To create an industry. People will be displaced altogether. Skilled labor may not be available. If you go to rural area and you find people are not going to school, skilled labor may not be available. Skilled, call it labor. Labor may not be available. So find skilled labor not being available. Skilled labor may necessarily not be available. So you can find scenarios where skilled labor is not available. Which can promote, again, we can also talk about overexploitation of natural resources, where people will dig. Overexploitation, we call it exploitation of what we call of the natural resource, of the natural resources. So overexploitation of the natural resources will have what we call overexploitation of the natural resources. Then you can also talk about what we call spreading of industrial pollution. Spreading, the word is spreading of what we call of industrial pollution. You'll have industrial pollution everywhere. Spreading of industrial pollution. So these are some of the disadvantages of what we call of what we call delocalization. Together, Jay. Together, we respond with a yes. Then I want to talk about small-scale industry. Are we together? Small-scale industry. So small-scale industry like weaving and pottery, we understand that they play a very important role in an economy. So small-scale industry, small-scale industry. So small-scale industries. So on the small-scale industry, I just want you to understand the positives and the limitations altogether. Positives and the limitations altogether. So merits took advantages. The advantages, and what's called disadvantages. We just discussed 5. So there are advantages and there are disadvantages. So the small-scale industry, the weaving and pottery and those etc. What are the advantages of the small-scale industry? What are the small advantages of small-scale industry? So one bit is that they create employment, creation of employment. We have what's called creation of what we call employment. They create jobs for people who lack jobs. They create jobs for people who lack jobs. Then require small amount of capital start. Requires small amount of capital to start. I hope Munanipata. They require small amount of money to start. But again, enable exploitation of resources. Enables exploitation. Enables what's called exploitation of what we call resources. It does assist in what we call exploitation of resources. One of the beauty of it, then we understand that again, a country earns revenue, foreign exchange through export. Foreign exchange, call it through what we call export. Foreign exchange through export. A country is able to earn foreign exchange through export together. So lastly, promote economic growth and development. Promote what we call economic growth and what we call development. So 5 is enough. The rest you can get in the notes. Together, those are the positives of what we call the small-scale industry. People will get jobs. People who lack jobs will have jobs in those areas altogether. So what are some of the disadvantages of this small-scale industry? So some of the disadvantages or limitations, they suffer from inadequate capital. They lack money. Inadequate capital. There's lack of money for this. Then competition from large firms. Competition. We call it from large firms. So there's massive competition from large firms. You find the large firms are killing these industries altogether. They say that the other firms may as a disadvantage, we can also talk about as a disadvantage. We understand faced with high taxes. We can talk about high taxes. You find taxes are eating this as a limitation, high taxes. But we can also talk about poor management due to inadequate skill. Poor management due to, call it inadequate skills. So poor management as a result of what we call inadequate skill. Poor management as a result of inadequate skills. But they're also faced with poor infrastructures, poor infrastructure. I hope that is at home, poor infrastructure. Bonyeza, yes. As we wrap it up so that we go to revision. So to Bonyeza, yes, tafadhali. You can be asked a very nice question. And this question was particularly asked in one of the ears. Give me your ears. If you're there, then you let me know that you're there. If you're there, you let me know that you're there. So you can be asked, for example, that why do small-scale industry continue to exist? Why do they exist despite existence? Despite stiff competition, despite what calls stiff competition, despite what we call stiff competition from what we call from the large firms. Why do they still exist despite competition? We expect that these large firms should totally, are we together? Let them go. Why do they exist still? So one of it, low amount of capital to start. Low amount of capital to start. Low amount of what we call capital to do what? To start. The fact that there is low amount of capital to start, low amount of capital to start, they say few legal formalities. For you to start this, there's what's called few legal formalities. We call it few legal formalities. So you require what's called few legal formalities. You don't need much, but simply few legal formalities. Tax incentives, sometimes tax incentive from government. Tax incentives from what's called from the government. The given tax incentives from the government, tax incentives from the government, but you can also easy to manage. Why do they easy to manage? Despite they're easy to manage. You can talk about easy to manage. Easy to manage. You get these questions, easy to manage. We say that size of the market is generally small. Sometimes the size of what we call market is generally small. The size of the market is generally small. The size of the market sometimes is generally small. The size of the market sometimes is generally small. Strategies, government strategy for small scale industry. So you can be asked government strategy for what we call for small scale industry, So government strategies for the small scale industries. Very fast. The two things that I need to discuss, this and the strategy. So what are the strategy? One of the strategy for the government is to train entrepreneurs. We call it training entrepreneurs. Training the entrepreneurs as one of the strategy to train the entrepreneurs. We have the government, we have training, setting standards in business, setting standards in business. Then provide favorable legal environment. Favorable legal environment. The government providing what's called favorable legal environment. We also have what's called low taxes, government should offer what you call low taxes. And then we have what you call, the government provide what you call low taxes, but again, assist in marketing the goods. Assist in what's called in marketing the goods and services. So this is the strategy for the small scale industry. Those are the strategies that the government has for the small scale. Then one last thing, you go for a break, then we come for revision. And these things that I'm showing you, these are the example of the things that you don't have, but you will find you need them. So the last part, measures the government may put in place to boost. Measures that the government put in place to do what? To boost what they call informal sector. To boost what we call informal sectors. Measures the government put in place to boost what they call the informal sector. This week, I just want to finish revision for the macro, then 2 weeks, those are 6 classes of micro, so that when you get to exam, how measures of the government basically put in place to boost informal sectors, like the Juakali. What do they do? Giving credit facility to entrepreneurs. Giving what they call credit facilities to who? To the entrepreneurs. Give them credit. We've also seen the government doing building sheds. If you look at estates, building what's called the sheds. We have seen the government basically building the sheds. The government coming in to build shed for these traders. But you can also see that the government set aside land for development, set aside land for what we call for development of what we call the informal sector. You've seen the government setting aside land for the development of informal sectors. We have seen the government basically setting aside land for the development, but you can also talk about training entrepreneurs. We've talked about training entrepreneurs in informal sectors, training what we call entrepreneurs in what we call in the informal sector, So training entrepreneurs in the informal sector. And then we have the last one. We can talk about loans, government low interest loan. So we can have also low interest loans. They give them loans at a low interest. Then they won't get the bonus. Moja bonus, formation of cooperatives informal that support them. Cooperatives that support them. Cooperatives that we say that supports them. That we say supports them. So formation of cooperatives that perform supports them. Formation of what we call cooperatives that supports them. Formation of what we call cooperatives that supports them. So we are done. So we started with blocks on agriculture. Blocks on what we call on agriculture and industry. So as usual, economics, there's a different method we do on a yearly basis. So we come back 7 minutes by 10 we come, so that we have about 40 minutes for revising that. Is that okay? 7 minutes of break, then you come back. Tafadhali nipatie yes if we have 7 minutes of break, then you come back. Is that okay? 7 minutes of break, then you come with the past paper. Thanks. Very fast, 7 minutes will be enough. Send that past paper very fast to the group. So let's start with August 2025. Has it been sent? Okay. So good. We start with that August. On that August exam, so we didn't have that question, so we go to April. On that particular year, we go to April 2025. So we start April 2025. April 2025. Are you there on April 25? 1B. Somebody says 1B. That is on money and banking. Please, that is on money and banking. 1B, that is on money and banking. That is on money. So it's, oh, sorry. Let me look at that. So 6 strategies. So being told that the 6 strategies that the government could implement to counter effect of climate change counter effect of what we call climate change. measures the government could adopt to counter effect of climate change on agriculture. Thanks. So how can government basically counter effects of climate change in agriculture? How can the government basically counter the effect of climate change in agriculture? The effect of climate change in agriculture. How does the government basically counter that? 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 Effects of climate change in agriculture. And that is a good mark, 6 marks. How does the government counter that? How does the government basically counter that? Effects of climate change, how the government counter that? So one of it is rain harvesting. This is more rain harvesting. So we call it the rain harvesting, rainwater harvesting. Rainwater, talk about rainwater harvesting. So if you have the water, if you harvest the water, then you're able to counter the effect of climate change. Together, team. Rainwater harvesting together. Together, rainwater harvesting. So in periods where we lack water, then we have water. Tafadhali nipatie yes if you're there. Rainwater harvesting as one of the methods. We respond with a yes if that point is at home. Is that point at home? So we have also cover crop. We also have what's called the cover crops. So when we plant these cover crops, we understand that planting cover crop that help prevent soil erosion. Helps to prevent what we call soil erosion. So when these cover crops are basically planted, they help to prevent what we call soil erosion. And that would make sure that provide water retention. This provides what we call water retention. Effects of climate change can be drought, they can also be flood altogether. So then we have what we call crop diversification and rotation. What you have as crop diversification, and what we call and rotation. Crops diversification and what we call rotation. What you have as crop diversification and rotation. So this crop rotation, are we together? Crop rotation and diversification. So you find crops that are basically, they can withstand climate, those rotation. Then we have, that should be on adaptive crops. Adaptive crops. The government can decide to go the way of adaptive crops altogether that are more vibrant and resilient to unfavorable climate. Vibrant, and we call it resilient to what we call unfavorable climate. So get crops that are adaptive, they're resilient and adaptive to unfavorable climate. So then we have what's called improved efficiency. So when I talk about improved efficiency, irrigation is vital for vegetation altogether. We know that irrigation is very vital. We talk about irrigation. We say is vital. Irrigation is basically vital for vegetation, or what we call for vegetation. When there's lack of what we call rainfall. So irrigation is very vital when there's lack of rainfall. And to ensure this ensures what we call the plant development. So when effects of climate on agriculture adverse, the word is basically adverse. How do we counter effects of climate on agriculture? When I say rainwater harvesting, to make sure that when there's water, when there's no rain. When there's drought, you have water, cover crops to prevent, crops being swept. That is a crop diversification and rotation. You rotate together. Then you have adaptive crops. And you're saying that these crops are very vibrant and resilient to unfavorable climate. Then we have improved efficiency, where we talk about irrigation, which is vital for vegetation when there's lack of rainfall. Ensure that the plants basically grow. And lastly, we can talk about what we call minimum tillage. What they call the minimum tillage. Call it the minimum. We talk about minimum. We have it as minimum. We talk about minimum tillage. We talk about minimum tillage. The next, we talk about minimum tillage. So minimum tillage agriculture, this prevents what we call soil erosion, and promote, and the word is promote carbon centralization, which is vital. Carbon centralization, which is beneficial regarding climate change and farming. Climate change and what's called farming. So this is how the government counter effect of climatic change. Is that question answered perfectly well? You are not responding, and I expected my class to respond. One of the best things is to respond. Kindly be responding. Are we together? Are we on the same page? Nimeshukuru sana if you're on the same page. If we are on the same page, nashukuru sana. Is my net hanging? Somebody saying something in a hang. Is my net okay? My net is saying it's okay. Yes, it's okay. That's why I changed the net. So we go to April 2025. Economics, I normally revise that because of a reason. April 2025. So let's open April 2025. Tafadhali, April 2025. Let's open April 2025. Tafadhali, April 2025. So we have the first one. April 2025. We are told question 1C. Question 1C. Turn to that paper. Very fast, good team. Turn to that paper. So then we're being asked 8 policies that could be adopted by developing country to encourage industrial development. Policies adopted to encourage what's called industrial development. So what are these policies that could be adopted to do what? To encourage industrial development. What are these policies to encourage industrial development? Policies that could be adopted, 8 policy measures that could be adopted to encourage industrial development. Are we together? Building of infrastructure. One is infrastructure development. Infrastructure development, build infrastructure as one of the policy. Infrastructure development. We have what we call subsidies, giving subsidies to farm, giving subsidies to entrepreneurs, small scale, to giving subsidies to giving subsidies to industries, and to specific subsidies to industries, developer. You can give the small ones to encourage giving subsidies, but again, also as a policy, training entrepreneurs, training what they call the entrepreneurs. You decide to train entrepreneurs, training entrepreneurs as one of the policies, training entrepreneurs. They say providing security to enhance industrial development, security to enhance security as a policy, security to enhance what they call industrial development, to enhance what's called industrial security, to enhance what's called industrial development. Then we have favorable legal environment. So policy, you provide what's called favorable legal environment. We provide what's called a favorable legal environment. Provision of capital, provision of loans at low interest. People are afraid, of opening industry because it's very expensive to put up an industry. It's very expensive to put up industries. So how many were there? Were 8. So we can have there were 8 marketing goods for those who have industries altogether. Marketing produce of industrial farms. Marketing, what we call produce, for what we call for industrial farms. You decide to market the produce for these industrial farms as one of the ways to improve industries in a country. You decide to market for them their produce. You market for them their produce, but you also lower taxes for this entrepreneur. Lower the taxes. Is this question perfectly sorted? Tafadhali. So is this question perfectly sorted? Tafadhali musikae sana kujibu. Is that question perfectly sorted? Priska, is that question perfectly sorted? Killian, is that question perfectly sorted? Tafadhali, mwalimu needs you. In this class, I need you people. I cannot do it without you. Yes, learn the art of responding very fast. Yes, learning is a process. If we don't just a minute to check something. So if we don't respond, then learning is not complete. Those are policies of the government to improve industrial sector. But again, this is a macro is where we scoop marks. Are we together? Priska, do you think there's a standard answer for this marking this? If I'm marking this paper, do you think there's a standard answer? The reason why we say the macro was given, because this is where there's not a standard. We'll have marking scheme, but this one can stretch out of the marking scheme. Sawa. So I hope that is sorted. Is that sorted? If that is sorted, we respond with a yes. I hope that is sorted. So let's check if there was a question, any question in that particular question. That's okay. So we move to December 2024. We move to DEC 2024. Tafadhali, DEC 2024. Are you on that paper? Please, DEC 2024. I want us to move to DEC 2024. So the first question for DEC 2024, the first question for the day 2024. That's question 70. Question 70. Question 70. Question 70. So question 70. On that year 70, challenges facing agriculture sector. It talks about challenges affecting what is affecting what's called the industrial, very fast industrial sectors. Challenges affecting what we call agricultural sector, sorry, not industrial, agricultural sector, agricultural sectors in developing countries. What are these affecting agricultural sectors in developing countries? To tell me what is wrong with your net. What are these challenges that affect agricultural sectors? So say limited access to technology and innovation. Technology is low. Limited access to what? To the technology and what's called innovation. Limited access to the technology and innovation. That's an issue. I don't know why it gets away. So in a poor infrastructure, inadequate infrastructure, poor infrastructure as an issue, poor infrastructure. We have what we call poor infrastructure. Changes, climate change and environmental climate change. And what's called mental degradation. So we have what's called climate change and environmental degradation. Climate change and what's called environmental degradation. Climate change and lack of access to finance. Lack of what's called access to what? To finance. Lack of access. And there's so many. There are so many problems facing agriculture. Changes in seasons, changes in seasons. Niwaongeza moja as a bonus. One as a bonus. A fluctuation in prices of agricultural product. Fluctuation in prices. Is this question perfectly sorted? Hiyo swali imefanywa vizuri? We respond with a yes. So then I go to August 2024. August 2024. If that question is sorted, you give me a yes, definitely. You give me a yes if that question is sorted. If that question is sorted, nimeshukuru. So the first question that I want us to go to is question 2. We have it as question 2. That is August 2024. Question 2, Roman C. Question 2, Roman C. Tafadhali, if you're there, give me yes. If you're there, you give me yes. Now Gillian is out now, so moving. Challenges faced by small-scale industries. Challenges. It's on challenges. Challenges. And we call it faced by what we call the small-scale industries. Challenges that face the small-scale industries. Challenges that basically face what we call the small-scale industry. Have we done that? Challenges that face the small-scale industries. So that's also a very beautiful question. We say inadequate capital. We have inadequate. We write them so that when you go inadequate capital, when you come to this class and you revise inadequate capital, we don't say you have done it. Then we talk about high taxes, issues to do with high taxes. We have issues to do with high taxes, competition from large farms, from what I call from large farms. We have competition from large farms, competition from large farms. We can also talk about poor management due to inadequate skills, poor management due to what we call inadequate skills. So poor management due to inadequate skill. Poor management due to inadequate skills. Then we can also talk about high cost of production due to inflation. High cost of what we call production due to inflation. So those are 5 and many others that we've also discussed. Equals out. Is that question perfectly sorted? Gillian, I don't want people to be out all the time. I want people to be in class, no going out. So these are problems that are faced by the small-scale industry: inadequate capital, high taxes, corruption from competition from large farm, poor management due to inadequate skills, high cost of production due to inflation. I don't want people to always go out. Just make sure that your network is okay. When I normally revise, it's always a very serious time for me. Yes, we pray that your network does not go. So I want us to get to the next question. Just for the same year, on August 2024, on August 2024, so apart from that, there was not any other question. So we go to April 2024, April 2024, and we take it serious. April 2024. 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 Tuko sawa? Are we on April 2024? Kama tuko kwa April 2024, nipatie yes. So the first question that I want to talk about is question 1, though it's also under, when talk about, it's also under fluctuation in prices of cobweb theory. So 3 reasons for fluctuation of reasons. Let's discuss explain 3 reasons for fluctuation. That's 1B. 1B, reasons. We call it reasons for what we call for fluctuation. Reasons for what we call fluctuation. Reasons for what we call for the fluctuation. For the fluctuation of commodity price in agricultural sector. For commodity price. For commodity price. Commodity price in what we call in agricultural sector. Commodity price in agricultural sector. Reasons for the fluctuation in price for commodity price in agricultural sector. Why do we have them fluctuating? Commodity price in the agricultural sector. Why do we have them fluctuating? Why do we have them prices in agricultural sector basically fluctuating? Why do we have them fluctuating? Why do we have them? So we have what we call change in climate. Change in climate. Changes in climate. So one is changes in what we call climate. So when the climate is good, the prices are low. When the climate is good, when you have a favorable climate, then the prices are low. When the climate's favorable climate, then the prices are good. When the climate is poor, when we have drought, they become very expensive. But you also have what's called perishability. One of the reasons is perishability. Perishability. And on the aspect of perishability, we are simply saying that agricultural products have different prices depending on supply in the market altogether. because they cannot be stored for long. Are we together? Then you also have what we call over or underproduction. We can talk about over, or what we call underproduction. What we call over, so what we call underproduction. So when there is overproduction, prices are low. When there's underproduction, prices are high. Are we together? Prices are high. But you also have issues to do with currency fluctuation. You can talk about currency fluctuations when you have currency fluctuations. Issues to do with currency fluctuations. Issues to do with currency fluctuations. You can also have issues to do with what you call the currency fluctuation. Those are enough, and the rest you can get in our notes. Together, team. Is that question answered perfectly well? Is that question answered? My representative Preska, are you okay with that question? Is that question answered perfectly well? Is that question answered perfectly well? Perfect. So again, on the same, on that year, there was still a question on agriculture and industry. Always about the last question. Look at question 7.3. So outline 3 measures the developing country might use to promote agricultural development. Question 70. 70. Measures to do what? To promote what's called agricultural development. Measures to promote what's called agricultural development. So what are the measures that developing countries can basically use to promote agricultural development? That's also a good question. So those are you can give me. So what are some of the measures? Building infrastructure. You know, one of the reasons why we're building infrastructure? Building what you call infrastructure. Capital to entrepreneur, capital to farmers. Compensatory, when they go compensatory. Funds, especially when there's famine and pest, like locusts have invaded. But to talk about training, you know, on modern agricultural technique, training on what you call on modern, and you call it agricultural technique, training on modern agricultural technique, training on what's called the modern agricultural technique. But we also understand that apart from training on modern agricultural technique, we can also talk about training. We talk about irrigation, you know, irrigation schemes. We provide what's called irrigation schemes. So if you want to promote agriculture, that's what you do. Together, team. Is that question satisfactory answered? I want us to go to December 2023. I want us to go to December 2023. December 2023. Kama tuko hapo tubonyeze yes. DEC 2023. DEC 2023. Tafadhali. Tukue hapo. We are not just teaching, we are serving God. We remember we are serving God. We are not just teaching, we are serving God. So look at December 2023. Now, some of the things that are not there in the notes, but I was able to address them. So if you look at December 2023, December 2023, December 2023, we have a question on December 2023. Look at question 5C. Look at question 5C. Question 5C. Angalia swali. Are you at question 5C? December 23, question 5C. Are we there? Tafadhali nipatie yes. Outline 6 demerits of delocalization of industry. Demerits of what we call delocalization of what we call of industries. So demerits of what we call delocalization of the industry. So 6 demerits, that is 6 disadvantages of delocalization of industry. So number 1, one is social evils. When industry is all about social evils such as crime and prostitution. We have crime and prostitution. We have what we call overexploitation of what we call the natural resources. We have issues to do with displacement of people, displacement of what we call people, to do what? To create room for what we call for industry. You have for industry. Lack of skills, expertise. You can find a lack of expertise. Again, you'll find lack of skilled labor may not be readily available, especially rural area. Skilled labor may not be readily, call it readily available. So skilled labor may not be readily available. So skilled labor, you may find it not readily available. But you can talk about infrastructure is poor, leading to transport, like poor transport. Infrastructure may be poor, especially in rural, poor, leading to what we call poor transportation. You can find infrastructures are very poor, leading to poor transportation. So that was how many marks? Ilikuwa ni marks ngapi? Marks ngapi? Labor may not be readily available. You can talk about, yes, we've talked about overexploitation. How many marks was that? 6. So we need to add 1. So we can add lead to spreading of industrial pollution. We have pollution, industrial pollution. We don't have that. Spreading of industrial pollution. Spreading of what we call of industrial pollution. Spreading of what we call industrial pollution. I want us to go to August. Kama August 23. Tuko sawa chini. Tafadhali. August 23. Tuko na swali kama hiyo. Very fast, I want us to move to August 23. So August 23. We don't have a question on that. But April 23, we have. So just put it August, we don't have April. This is the last one, April 23. Tafadhali. Are we there on April 23? So the rest you can. April 23, tafadhali nipatie yes. Kama uko hapo. Don't leave me to be alone. This is one of the questions that I was. April 23. April 23. Question 3. Tax measures adopted to spur economic growth. Tax measures adopted to do what? To spur what we call economic growth. So tax measures that are adopted to spur what we call economic growth. Tax measures. Did I discuss that? Nataka tu mtu anipatie yes. Did I discuss that? Did I discuss that? Tax measures adopted. Gillian and Kitawe. Lowering taxes on input. Taxes on input. When we talked about this, lowering taxes on input, they say increasing taxes on import, increasing what we have as taxes on import, increasing taxes on import, increasing the taxes on import. We can talk about using tax revenue to pay farmers, tax revenue to pay farmers, during bad weather or ash condition, during bad or ash conditions. During bad weather or what's called ash condition. During the bad weather or what we call ash conditions. Ash conditions. Then say reducing fuel price to lower, reducing fuel price to do what? To lower transportation cost. Reducing the fuel price basically to lower transportation cost. And lastly, we can talk about reducing taxes on agricultural export. Reduce taxes on agricultural export, cultural export. Reducing taxes on agricultural export. My good friend Priska, my representative, is that at all? So if you look at previous years, you'll see questions. How does government improve how does the government make informal sectors? Measures that are adopted by government. If you look at 2020, 2021, there are measures the government put to make informal sector better. What I was writing, you'll find them on those particular questions. So we are done with this topic. Are we together on that topic and the blocks on that topic? So on Friday, I'm moving before I go to money and banking. Those are critical topics, and I will go to the blocks that we are going to unemployment and inflation. We are moving to unemployment and inflation. This is where our block is. Unemployment and inflation. Unemployment and inflation. That is where our block will be. That is where our blocks is going to be. Unemployment and inflation. Sawa. We can stop it at that point for today. Unless somebody has something that is burning that cannot be postponed. But I beg us to stop it at that point. Unless somebody has a question that cannot be postponed. So we close it there. God bless you all, and God bless our class. Thank you. Any question? Thank you so much. Thank you.